back at the Archduke Trio, first movement. I was busily slaving over the trills yesterday. Now I'm heading into the double third section. It's measure 158 or so and on. Doesn't look problematical, but having a good fingering seems to be really important. So let's see what happens. For example, where I turn my hand, I haven't written anything in the left hand, but I am turning to 5 and 3. There. I'm not so sure that's smart. Conceptually speaking, the easiest is to just do groups of 4, even though that doesn't lie under the hand perfectly well. But you know, I might do that because the simplicity, in spite of the fact that I have to negotiate different finger lengths and topography, the simplicity is worth it. At least today it is. Interestingly enough, if I use in the 3-note group at the end, when there's a repeated note, 5 and 3, which seems obvious, that angle, even though this is a comfortable hand position, it leaves a little bit to be desired. So I am going to make that one alteration in my fingering and go to 2-4 there, so my hand can be a little more neutral on the way up. And that's the only exception I'm going to make for now. I've written down a lot of exception fingerings. In other words, I haven't stuck with the 4-note groups. And I realize here the negotiation of black and white thirds, especially with the thumb on the black note in the left hand, is really uncomfortable for me. Curious is that I haven't written any fingering in the left hand, but my left hand protests. Well, okay, I've come up with it. 162, a 4 group, then 4-2 to 5-3, where I had previously moved my hand for the second note. By turning one note later, then I get myself ready for the last group. And from my left hand's point of view, actually able to do that in parallel with my right hand, which is an unexpected pleasure. So I'm going to stick with, in 161, 2, 3, in my left hand. I had preceded that with a 3, 2, 1, 1, or 5, 4, 3, 2 in the bottom finger, and then repeat the 1, 3. So I have, then I shift. So, I like it. totally violating my desire to be consistent, but comfort and basic simplicity wins out. The 6, basically I just so love going 2-5 on black white in the right hand, or 4-1 and black white in the left hand on these 6. So as much as possible, that's what I do. When it's all white, then the arbitrariness, the ugliness of arbitrariness sets in again. Set of 2 white notes. Okay. So that's the one that the area of maximum arbitrariness that I've tried to make a little more specific. Thought going on. Okay, good. I don't know how many notes I will shake yet. He has written an Aufschlag going nowhere, which is fine. It could be simply 5 notes. Could be 1, 2, 3. The reason groups of 4 doesn't work here, or don't work here, is because there's a group of 5 here, so I have to choose how to negotiate that. And the easiest thing is to simply do what I've already indicated to myself. Turn back to 1-3, and then turn 1 note later in the right hand. That happens to work, that same strategy in the left hand. And then go on. Make it work on the way back up and repeat. I have to turn to 2 and 4 in the left hand. So I don't, if I didn't do that, if I went to 5 and 3, then I wouldn't have the 4 note group. I wouldn't have 1, 2 on E flat G. So that little decision pays big dividends for me. Stay and move. Double back, and then move on. I'm going to indicate that with a line. And then this, and then this. Okay. Sneaky Beethoven when he it into single notes. It's amazing how you need a strategy. Again, it looks so deceptively simple, but it requires you to know exactly what you're going to do for fear of otherwise just sort of spraying energy at the keyboard. The ups and downs don't seem to be problematic. No reason not to mark the groups. Strangely challenging to figure out decent fingering for these last three isolated notes. So let me try it one hand at a time. If I'm on thumb, which is one of the two possibilities I would normally think of, 3, 4, 5 just is a little bizarre. Possible, but I'm going to hope for not. 1, 2, 3 is ideal. So if I'm on thumb there, then in all likelihood I'm on 4, 2, 3, 1. And so, trying to get to 3, 1 on C. So 3, 1 on C, 1, 2, 3. Added to which it's at least ostensibly a subito fortissimo, so going into the thumb is not a bad thing. So let's see. 3, 1. Okay. Strangely enough, I have never put down a fingering in this section. But I've never really liked it either. So to go all the way back down here. I'm 1 and 3 already on C, E flat, the octave lower. Tossing down that octave, I want to go to thumb because it's the most easily available, and then move my hand outward to fourth. It's very easy to do, it's all non-legato, so long as I don't compress my hand and anticipate the fourth finger. So I go to thumb, then I start again on 4. Again, looking down at the keyboard doesn't hurt when I'm curious about why I'm not just tossing this off with ease. And it could be a history, a backlog deep within me of a discomfort or an uncertainty, which I'm perfectly happy to deal with. You notice I'm doubling. That's why I say I want to go to the 5th finger. And the other thing is I've got myself set up, starting on this nice comfortable 1-3. It feels like a downbeat to me, but it's not. It's a pickup. Here's the downbeat. That'll make a difference. And then the thumb note, the G, happily is a downbeat. So downbeat. Mystery solved. Again, a 4th finger in isolation isn't a very pleasant thing, so I want to make sure when my hand comes out here, my whole hand is balancing my 4th finger, that I'm feeling the strength of this kind of position or this kind of a position. I'll sometimes invent a keyboard for my thumb to rest on, like this, just so there's a strong sense of why I trust my hand there. So let's see. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. should not bug me. That doesn't mean it doesn't. Okay, left hand is a little more problematical because going 1, 2, 3 in the right hand is really pleasurable. Going 3, 2, 1, not so. It's exactly the reverse of what I'd like. So, do I want to end on 2, 1, 2? If so, how do I get there? That would involve probably getting to 5, 3 on the last of the thirds. I have to remind myself what I've been doing. So if I go, my original tendency was always to go 4, 2, 3, 1. And I really do not like having to come over to fourth finger here. It turns my hand rather extremely here. Even though I'd love to do it down here, it's much, much harder up here unless I lean way, way out. Sorry for getting so close. Let's see. What if I went to 5, 5? I can do that, of course. Well, just for argument's sake. Holy mackerel, let's see. Whoa. You know what? That's scarily good. Oh, and just think of all the time. And now, admittedly, when you hit upon a new discovery, it's so new that you're just thrilled with its newness and its wonderfulness. I might wake up tomorrow and say, what an idiotic thing to do. But at the very least, I know several things. The octaves are simple at that tempo. There's a fortissimo. So there's no problem about getting an impact-filled sound there. The hand is ready to go. Let's see. If I'm going 1, 3, 2, 4, it's so easy to open up to this, then my left hand doesn't have to cross over my body in such an extreme way. And then it's ready to go here. Now this is the kind of thing that serendipity provides. You know, I hadn't thought of that, although on my checklist for awkward passages is always check out whether you can redivide. In this case, noodling really paid off. It's like scarily effective. quite enjoyed going from 1-2 to 1-2 again. So in a previous journey here, I wrote 1-3 here, which is a little awkward, but it really does set up those 3 chords at the end of my left hand, so it seems to be worth it. Yeah. Okay, that's great. I gotta say, that's both humbling and giddiness inducing at the same time. The fact that this is one of those passages that bugs me on and off when I get to it, and I've always found it somewhat awkward, and then just being open about possibilities and having a solution just, in essence, fall into my lap. That's a very good thing. I like that solution a lot. I certainly wouldn't fight it in terms of the purist, non-purist dichotomy. I'm just really happy that the solution is that easy, that comfortable, and that dependable. Now, I do know that coming on is one of the wickedest spots in the piece, not both conceptually and executionally, I guess. It's the place where Beethoven writes a measured trill in the left hand, starting in measure, looks like 189. These are 16th notes. And he writes an unmeasured trill in the right hand with the auxiliary note written out, so you know that he wants it. So and then that's the reprise, not the recap. We've already had the recap. The reprise of the theme to, I guess, start the coda. What am I talking about? Yes, okay. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's this is the recap. It's to start the recap, okay? I'm thinking ahead when the more grandioso version of the theme and chords comes in, just at the beginning of the coda. Here we are at the recap, and not unlike the Spring Sonata of Beethoven, heading into the recap of the first movement, where the violinist and the pianist have to coordinate their trill, often to their great dismay. In this case, it's a very peculiar thing. My partners are playing trills in opposite directions. And let's see if I've got that right. Okay, very, very small print. They're doing that. I'm going. So we've got lots of stuff going on. I'm going to assume because of that Beethoven's writing out of the right-hand trill without a specific measurement is not that big a deal. In other words, he's not necessarily intending for me to do something wickedly like that. Now, the problem is that if I do that, my last note is A. I could do that, which would be a peculiar violation of the integrity of the trill for most of us, because most of the time you play through the main note at the end of a trill. So that means adding an extra note then, or it's a wonderful dissonance. At least I have a solution that I can hear and that I can understand. So what I've done is played 2 30-second notes. Is that what Beethoven meant? It's hard to say. I have certainly tried it this way, just listening very hard to the left hand measurement. And I rather like the chaos, and then a return to some degree of clarity just as it reintroduces the main theme. So my left hand, this so often happens when your ear is trained to want to get things in alignment, and the music says, no, don't do that, that my ear and my body will conspire against my mind and say, fix that, and I end up on the wrong note. So, it's easy enough to do it in I-syncopy. Making it become familiar in its approach as well. Let us move on. Okay, let's look next set of scales. Alas, let's see. Where am I? 225, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 231. Okay, at 230. Okay, so this is not a fingering issue because there's almost no choice. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's nice. Then I've previously noted that I skip a finger at the end to end on 5 so that the octave leap 1, 2, 3, 5, 1 is really nice. And I had previously changed for some reason from 1, 2, 3, 4 to 2, 1, 2, 3, probably to maintain the posture of the hand in the two white, white, black groups. That really gives a consistency. Oh, and if I stick with 3-note groups in the left hand, then it's all 3-note groups. And then octave. It's very unexpected. Let's see. You know, I could use a more orthodox C major fingering starting in the left hand on 2 and then going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Really, the more acute pleasure of playing so that the individual hand groups are optimized with the third finger, the longest finger on the one black note, that's really so much nicer. So there are all kinds of instances when the orthodox fingering that we use when we don't have time to think about it can be replaced by something that's ideal for the circumstances. I've got a 9-note scale, so 9-note scale requires an adjustment anyway. In this case, 3 3s instead of a 1 and then a 3 and then a 5. This would be really nice. Well, of course, getting out of it then, the third time around, puts me in an exception situation. And here, what I might do is negotiate getting back to orthodox fingering. So I could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Incidentally, I practice scale fingerings a lot, just in the hand groups. Just to note that, as one of my colleagues has called it, that fingering could perhaps be called arming or handing or whatever, but in any event, the choreography of getting your hand moved from comfortable place to comfortable place is primarily why you finger in a certain way. So, now, I could go 1, 2, and then 5, and that would get me back to orthodox B-flat fingering. Or I could skip a finger and split the difference. 1, 3, 5 instead of 1, 2, 5. Yeah, I think that's maybe what I said. Like that. 1, 3, 5. So. It still works for the right hand to do what it did before. Start on 2 and then groups of 3. And it's perfect for getting up to the top. Oops. Was a fingering, it was in fact a handwritten measure number. So it was as bizarre as I thought it was. That makes me think I should use a different hand font or something. I don't even actually need that measure number there. It was there probably because I started practicing there in some rehearsal. 3, 234. Much easier to keep the measure numbers separated. Put them at the beginnings of the lines. I can count to 3 or 7 or whatever. That's easy enough. Okay, now I no longer have a measure number to distract me. I had this issue exposition. I have to remind myself, go 5, 4, 3. And I'm going to remind myself again here. Redundancy in this case is for state of mind. Yeah. That's no problem. I see what my problem in the left hand was. I didn't know what to do to negotiate the G-flat black note at in the bass line. So what I'm going to do is skip a finger so I can get myself 3 to 2 on the black note, and turn my hand over for thumb on the white note octave. Beethoven makes it even a little easier. He breaks this line. He even does the same thing. This is doubled in the cello. Change her bow there. And I think rather than sweating some peculiar creepy crawly fingering, I'm just going to move my hand. And that's why my scale ends up short. It's like any hybrid experience where you have, say, mixtures of diatonic and chromatic, or in the right-hand case, a diatonic scale followed by a repeated note figure. You have to find a way to signal your body and your ear when you stop doing one, that's the end of the scale. So is it a 2-note repeat, or is it a 3-note? In other words, is it... Doesn't so matter which one you think of it as conceptually, it matters which one works. And then you can shape it in accordance with what your musical intent is. But your musical intent and your physical, the most physically simple solution are not necessarily the same thing. I keep liking to say there's a parallel physical or choreographic universe behind the notes on the score that tells you how you can best interact physically with what the musical demands are. So, well, for me, since going to my thumb is always the easiest, I have 3 notes, 3 B flats, so I go 3, 2, 1, piece of cake. In fact, since the left hand is playing 3, 2, 1, it's even a more delicious contrary experience, which, if you analyze the English, it's a little bizarre because contrary seems so contrarian in English, but contrary really represents a parallel or similar experience in the two mirrored hands. So 3, 2, 1 in both hands at the same time, doing the same sort of thing, is a very, very useful and pleasurable solution. Okay, like it. Okay, I'm going to go on. I have to remind myself I am at 2/864, 3, 2, 1, 261 is where these trills start with sort of fanfare-like figures. I do recall thinking about this. I can just move my left hand, my hands down to this fanfare section, because if I go 1, 2, 3, I get the maximum clarity in the end of the trill, and then just move. And subito piano. Since I want a second finger on A, I might remind myself by putting 3-1 C minor chord in 266. Don't know. Or I could just do 1, 2, 3 and use it as an exception fingering with that 1 octave. Somehow, though, I like being in that zone. I like having my hand position already defined for me. So the only way I know to do that with an assurance that I'll remember it is to set up the 3-1, 5-3-1, 3-1-5. That's good. So major, C minor. Whatever fingering I use here should be related to this. I have to reapproach the keyboard. Should I come 2, which gives me the maximum release from the keyboard? Well, since we're going to take a little time here, then it doesn't matter. I would have to repeat the thumb as well, but I'm going to choose 2. 2 gives me a little more separation. I stay in one position, because of the way my hand is made, I'll get stuck. So I want to make sure that my arm has mobility here, and because I want it to be soft as well. I want a lot of lateral motion. Not lateral motion, in and out motion. Unfortunately, when it gets softer, pianissimo, I have to go to E flat major from E flat minor. In E flat minor, I can just hover around the black notes. In E flat major, I have to move significantly more. So what I discovered was useful, instead of making a big deal about coming out to the G, I make the G belong to the inward gesture. And again, if I anticipate my hand position for E flat, second inversion, the fact that the second finger white note in among all those black notes is really hard for me. If I isolate that, if I play the black notes, then consider restarting on the white note. That makes a huge difference. It's one of the how the idiosyncrasy of my hand with the thick middle fingers really does affect my choreography. But every one of us has some of those. If I go straight on, I just can't do it. I get stuck. I need either a little bit of sideways and a little bit of coming out. Decided on these little neighboring tone notes in the right hand from 278 on that I would use my thumb, and at least on the first two. Let's see. Again, although the right hand is the busiest one, the demanding part for me is the left hand. Try to keep it even and out of the way. I think I will use third finger on my D here. I could use fourth, but in this case, the third finger finds itself better positioned. White note to a white note, so that leap is much harder than finding a black note. I can find a black note by feel very easily. So, although I could practice to get this trajectory just right, I may just sneak a peek. So, at the appropriate time, of course. Sometimes, incidentally, I'll write in a little glasses sign just to indicate I should look. Now, you know, once I've empowered myself to look, I didn't need to, so go figure. Well, maybe I gesture here because of the octave. Shifting of fingers, let's see. Do I even like what I wrote? I wrote 1-5, 2-4. I may need to think about the grouping. For example, if I go into the 2 and finish this gesture, then come out and play 4-3-2-1, back inward. Or maybe I need to keep coming out and keep my hand diagonal here. 4, nah. Right now, what seems to be working the best is to start coming out on the 4th, continue the gesture with the angle changing slightly to represent the comfort of the hand, placed neutrally on F sharp, A on 2 and 4. Yeah. So. I like tossing to the thumb there. 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a standard finger. That's a standard turn finger. And because here I've only got a whole step for 3 notes, for 3 fingers, 3 keys. I have to make sure that I've adjusted my choreography also because 2 and 4 are both on black notes. It straightens out my hand considerably. A tilt wouldn't help it much because those are roughly analogous fingers and they like to be doing roughly the same thing. So, from the maximum turn of this one to this one. So, 5, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 groups, each with the same fingering. 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. But the groupings and the sensations and the choreography are quite different. Which is a lesson to be learned in all of those circumstances. You know, when you try to use exactly the same sensation, you expect a certain consistency, and that consistency is not there. You have to figure out why. That's where frustration breeds, incidentally. If you assume one thing, and the assumption is wrong, then of course everything you build from that assumption runs the risk of being very shaky. Do that. I could make my hand smaller and go 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2 instead. Whoops. Yes. Again, one of those fingerings I do not understand. In measure 282, instead of going 1, 3 or 1, 1, 4, I've written 1, 2, which is nice for me because that nice, using 4 rather than 3 on C gives me a little more comfort in the choreography. The distance from 4 to 2 makes my arm move my fingers more, so my fingers are less responsive than they would be if I used adjacent fingers, so I like it. But then I've written 3rd finger on E flat in the next measure. I don't even know how I got there. I would have assumed just 4, 3, 2, 1, use the turn finger in 3 times in a row. I'm guessing, one of these nice, interesting fingerings, 3, 1, and 2. Is what I was after. know what? It has its values, but I'm going to stick with the consistency in this case. This is right at the end of the movement. And I want something simple, so I'm going to go 3 and 4. So the first one will go 1, 2 to set up the 4, 2, 1. The second one will go 1, 3 to set up 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, here I have to get ready to go up. It's a funny thing here. I wrote in, this is in 285. I didn't write it in, it's from the assumption you make about the fingering. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, and then 1 to get me up to the 5th. So in other words, use a unique fingering to signal the turn. But what I've just discovered is if I stick with the 1, even on the turn that doesn't need it, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, it actually sets me up more quickly because I'm in that zone. I have that groove. Yep. I love it when I go back through old material that's somewhat familiar but not totally, and certainly that doesn't leave me with the sense that I always know what I'm doing. And there are plenty of surprises, like reading a book and saying, I never noticed that before. But when it particularly streamlines something, then it's like the octave thing I talked about previously. Boy, that's a pleasure to find. Yes. I have to remind my left hand to move. Take that.